Hello everyone, it's Stephanie. Thanks for joining me. Today I'm back with another design team project for the Not Too Shabby Shop, and I'm going to be sharing two cards from the new Lawn Fawn release. These are both going to be slider shaker cards, and I've discovered a new way to make slider cards that I think is the easiest way ever. So I'm really excited to share that with you. So the stamps that I'm going to be using today is called Mice on Ice, one of the cutest stamps from the new release that I couldn't wait to play with. And as soon as I saw the Lawn Fanatics challenge, something see-through, I knew I had to play along. So these cards were inspired by that challenge, and I wanted to make them skating on a pond. So I'm using some dies because I'm making two cards. So I'm going to make two shaker cards, cutting out both of my card panels at the same time. And then now I'll begin coloring all of my images. I'm going to begin coloring the trees, and I'm using E23, E25, and E29. I'm starting with the darkest shade, and then I'll use the medium shade and the lightest shade to blend it all out. And I'm trying to add the knot of the tree with the dark color and just not color all of it in. I want to leave a few highlights and make it look like it has some texture to the tree. Then I'll add the medium shade as well as the light shade and blend all that coloring out. Then I'll start coloring the mice, and I'll use some warm gray colors. I'll start with W2 and then use W3 and then go back to W2 and blend it all out with W0. I don't wind up using the W00, and then I blend it all out, but I'm just doing some quick Copic coloring because these images are really small, but yet so adorable. I'll use R11 and R22 to color the nose, cheeks, and the ears. And then I'll start coloring the scarf. And I'm using BG11, BG23, and BG49 to color the scarves. And then for the purple scarf, I'm using V01, V04, and V09. And I just do some basic blending. Oh, I also go back with BG0000 for the snow. And then, as always, I will use a little colored pencil just in the deepest, just a tiny bit to add some shading. Now I wanted to make the mountain range look like it had some shadows because I wanted it to be kind of like it was dusk. Not quite dark, but getting dark, and a winter sky. And so the sky was purple, so I thought this would make a nice, just kind of some shadows down at the bottom of the mountain range. So I'm trying to use this little tiny brush to kind of make it look almost like streaks. And I start out with milled lavender, and then I will add seedless preserves at the very base just to get some more contrast. And I will go along and then wipe off my brush and then add just a little bit more. I wanted to kind of blend it smoothly. And then I'll go ahead and adhere that to the card panel. And then I'll start using just a little bit of adhesive and add those snow caps on top. Now off camera, I do go in and add some splatters to the night sky, and I don't know why I didn't film, but I did go back and add splatters later. And then I'll use some adhesive around the ice pond on the back because I'm going to go ahead and attach my acetate. I'll adhere my acetate to the card panel, and then I'll go ahead and start adding some foam tape to the back, making sure I don't leave any gaps because I'm going to add some sequins after I use my powder tool. And I'll wipe away any of that extra powder and then add my gems and my sequins. I'm using some Pretty Pink Posh gems as well as the Pretty Pink Posh little snowflakes. And then I will adhere a second layer of acetate because I'm just going to use a scrap piece of pattern paper. So having the second layer of acetate allows me to see where I can place it. And I'll just add some adhesive so I can use up that scrap piece of paper and not worry about it having any gaps anywhere. Then I will add some more adhesive and go ahead and add the shaker to my card base. And after I get that lined up, I will go ahead and trim the mice. I really wanted to trim them a little closer because I wanted to make it look like they're holding hands on the ice. So I'll get them adhered together. I'm going to use some of this Arteza glitter that I have a whole bunch of, and I'm just using some Nuvo drops, and then I will simply shake some of the glitter on each of the snow caps of the trees. I do the mountains as well as the roof. I liked it so much that I do go back and add it to the trees as well. And I'll just tap off any excess. We're about to get to where I start sharing the first slider card that I made and how the idea came to be. I've been wanting to make a card similar to this since I saw Laura Basson and a few others share their Following Rain card, I think is what it's called, that everyone's shown. It's so amazing. I've been wanting to make the card with the beads for a long time, but it seems like it's going to be really time consuming, so I keep putting it off. But I did go out and buy a whole bunch of beads. But I got an idea that maybe I could use the beads to make a slider card. So this is my first attempt, and I'm not going to go too much into details. I'm just kind of letting you see how this idea came to be, because I literally was just winging it here. I had no idea if this would work or not. And so all I did is take some Scor-Tape, attach a bead, and then surround it with foam tape. And then I had the nylon thread inside the bead. And then I thought I would take the pattern tool to keep the thread from sticking to the foam tape and the foam squares. And then I thought I would just sandwich that between the second layer of little mice that are holding hands. And I had no idea if it would work, but I had to try it. When I had first started to make this card, I had actually meant to cut a hole in the acetate and use the actual Lawn Fawn slider in the acetate, but I had made the shaker card and forgot to cut the hole. So I still was kind of obsessed with making the mice skate on the ice. Sometimes I get obsessed with an idea and then it helps me create an even better idea. I thought it would be adorable. I really wanted to figure out how to get them to hold hands while skating on the ice. I played with this and it worked. It's not perfect, so I didn't go into too much detail because I'm going to show it better later when I figured it out a better way. But this was my first attempt. This is where my idea came to be, and it works. It slides along, and it worked pretty nice. It does get a little stuck on the trees. So I'm showing you how I assembled this card and how I popped everything up on foam squares and added the trees to cover up the foam squares. I do go back later and I tear this card apart, and once I figured out the better way to do it, because it works so much better than this. So please don't do it this way. Please see how I do the second card. And this is just showing you how the idea came to be. So after I had assembled that card, I realized the bead was a little too high, and I thought the problem was that it was a round bead. So I went to Hobby Lobby and I tried to find flat beads. And I couldn't find flat beads, but I found these cube beads. And they weren't very expensive. I think it was $4 for both of these bottles. And what I did is I took a standard hole punch, cut out some paper, and I used some glossy accents to adhere the bead to the paper. And then I just sandwiched 2 small circle pieces of paper that I had made with the standard hole punch. And the secret to this is really using the glossy accents because it's such a strong adhesive that the bead stays put. And that's what I found wrong with the first slider card also, is that I just used the Scor-Tape and it's not quite strong enough. So here I'm showing how I take the glossy accents and I'm going to add a little drop of it. Take a little circle that you've made with the hole punch, add some glossy accents to it, and then add the bead, let it dry completely, and then you can add more glossy accents and add the top layer, the circle, and then let that dry completely, and then you can go ahead and feed the nylon thread through the hole, and that's your slider mechanism. So they were called cube glass beads, and I'll link them to Amazon if I can find them, but you can find them at any craft store, I believe. And that's it. Now I'm showing how it spins and slides, but that is the slider mechanism. And the hardest part about this is fitting the clear thread through the hole. So to keep this, I am sure you could use glossy accents again, but I'm using Scor-Tape just to save time because I wanted to, again, I'm in a hurry to see if this is going to work because I was so excited, of course, to find an easier way to make a slider mechanism. I've used Scor-Tape to start adhering the slider mechanism to the stamped image, and you can see there I made sure that it was level. You need to use foam squares that are the same height as the bead you're using. Here I'm adding some Scor-Tape to the second mouse, and you really do need 2 stamped images because it keeps it balanced that way. 2, I will go ahead and cut the tail off the second mouse. But all you do is you're going to line that up, and see, it doesn't want to slide until you lift it up with the foam squares. So I'll go ahead, and I'm still just trying to make sure that this works. So I'm adding some foam squares, and I think that's going to lift it just enough to give a little more clearance, and it does. It worked great. So now I've got it all figured out, and so now this is just a practice run. I'll remove the foam squares and then now decide where I really want the mouse to go. Now see, you want to have a track and you don't want anything between the mouse's head and feet. You don't want anything in that area. And that's what I did wrong with the first card. There are some trees quite a little in the way. So now I'm going to use another piece of this clear nylon thread. This is the same thread that you use when you make spinner cards. And here I assemble it. I'm going to use some foam squares. Now that I've decided exactly where I want the mouse to slide to and from, I'm going to attach some foam squares, and I'm going to remove the backing. I'm going to use some Scor-Tape, and I'm going to sandwich the clear nylon thread in between the sandwiches of the Scor-Tape. And I assemble this much like when I do a spinner card. And so it's super easy. I make sure that the foam square is the same height as my bead because that will keep it level, and that seems to be the trick to get it to work. So I'll go ahead and put the clear nylon thread. I'll attach it to the Scor-Tape. I'll sandwich it between another piece of Scor-Tape because I want it to really stay in place, and so I really need this strong adhesive. I'll even use my bone folder to make sure it's really adhered down well. Then I will make sure it's going to work before I pull off the backing of the second side and make sure it's going to go exactly how I want it to. Once I'm sure that there's no trees or anything in the way and I have that invisible line, a whole track, then I will go ahead and adhere the second side, and I will cut the extra thread off each side. And there it is. And that is the easiest way I've ever found to make a slider card. So I'll go ahead and remove that backing from the second piece. And then now I just need to cover up those foam squares. So I'm going to put a tree on one side. And then I will put they're actually the snow-capped mountains, but I'm using them as little piles of snow. And that's the second card. So I hope you've enjoyed this, and I hope this helps you make an easy slider card. I had so much fun making these. I can't wait to use this a different way. Now I did go back and I liked the second way so much better. I went back and I cut all that apart and I made it the same way for the second time. So thanks so much for watching and have a great day.